About once a year, an old Air Force base somewhere in Germany morphs into a creativity hub for music, visual arts, and alternative religion. Bunkers on the terrain are transformed into stages and dancing halls for enthusiastic artists and visitors. It's called Freakstock. And it is where we will be looking at a few musical tools. Hi, I'm here at the festival Freakstock, which is a festival for music and of course also Christian religion, and a lot of music and art there is. And so, inspired by that, I'll be doing a little bit of editing on some things I'm working on and share some combinators with you that I've been making for the recent Retro Studio. So let's go. So today we are going to look at combinators. I've made a few combinators, but first I might need to tell you a little bit about what a combinator is. A combinator is a device in Reason which makes it possible to control other devices that are inside of them. So for example, I've just created a new combinator right here. And if I create a synthesizer inside of that, you can see it gets put inside the combinator, and when I turn the rack around, the output of the synthesizer gets connected to an input of the combinator and then gets routed out. So this makes it possible to create different devices, maybe even kind of new devices inside of Reason. And it's very handy because if you're missing a tool that you actually need, you can create it yourself, and all you need to do is put the parts in the combinator that you need and then hook them up together, and there you go. You can create your own device. So I'm going to show you an example of a combinator I've made to extend the functionality of Reason a little bit. So I'm going to close this new document first. Here I have an example, a reso chords example, which is itself also a combinator. And what it does is it plays these sweet melodies randomly. And also when I press play, this is what you hear. Now that sounds quite soothing. So I want to show you the combinator that I made, which is a noise gate. In Reason, you have these devices called M-class devices. And these make it possible to do some mastering on your signals and to add different effects or equalize them, for example. But what I was missing in this tool set was a noise gate. So I created a combinator which fills in that role. And I will load it and show you what it looks like. Now you might say, hey, this doesn't look like the combinator above it. You see they look quite different. The one is gray, the other is a bit yellowish. So how come they look different? Well, when you create a combinator, you can actually create something called a skin, which is an image that you can stick onto the combinator and make it look different. So even though the buttons for a combinator, for example, these 4 rotary knobs and these 4 buttons, and these buttons on the left and these 2 dials on the left are always in the same place, using some handy design you can pull a few tricks and make the combinator look the way you want it to look and also function the way you want it to function. For instance, if I click Show Programmer here, you can see that the Combinator also has a programming section. And inside of that, you can program devices to react to the way that knobs are used up here. I'm not going to go deeply into this now because that would make a very, very long video. So first I'll just show you what this noise gate does. Now if we turn the rack around, we see that it has been automatically hooked up to the chord creator. And when I press play, let's see what happens. Okay, not much right now. And that's because the noise gate is not responding to a threshold yet. But using this dial, I can change that and you will hear a difference. Now when we're at level 6, or maybe even 7 or 8, you can hear that the noise gate is blocking the signal when it's below a certain threshold. This might be handy, for instance, if you want to use a microphone with Reason, which has a little bit of a noise level, and the noise gate will block that noise level at the bottom, so that you can have a silence when nobody's using the microphone. You can also create effects with it. Now let me drag this one next to its neighbors. Now you can see it looks very much the same as the other M-class devices. So that's how I intentionally wanted the design to look. And now we're going to play around a little bit with the dry-wet settings, and then you can hear that the noise gate can also become a kind of effect. Here you may notice that part of the signal was coming through all the time. That's because we changed this knob to allow a bit of that signal to come through. But the noise gate also opened fully when the threshold was hit. And so you could hear more of the chords coming through at certain times and less at other times. And playing around with attack, sustain, and release makes it possible to kind of create a little ramp in there that the volume gets slowly increased and slowly decreased. So in this way, you can use it as an effect. I want to show you what's inside of this noise gate because it might surprise you. If I click on Show Devices, there's actually just one device in there, which is the RV7000 reverb. And it has an interesting little function on it, namely a noise gate. But when I wanted to use that reverb directly, I found it a bit complicated to use. And so I put it inside of this Combinator and connected the buttons to the settings that I wanted to change. And then I don't need to find those buttons among the buttons that are listed on the RV7000, which is not as easy to use when it's not in the role of reverb, but in the role of noise gate. I have other combinators that I'd like to show you, but I just wanted to show you this one as a first example because it's simple and shows you very clearly what you can do with these combinators and that they are actually quite an interesting way to expand Reason's functionality. Okay, now here's another one I'd like to show you, which is called the IceStrom Widener. Now, I didn't make this combinator myself. I only created the skin for it because I found it on a forum. It was a forum with a lot of people that are enthusiastic about Reason, but it's an old forum, so I don't know if the person who calls himself or herself IceStrom is still on there. So this is the Widener, and what it does is it changes the sound that is input into it and makes it a bit thicker and creates a nice stereo effect on it. There's also a way to shape the sound a little bit, and that makes it a very nice addition to, for example, a monophonic synthesizer, or in this case we're going to try it on the Reso Chords Combinator example and see what the changes in the sound. First I'm going to bypass the Widener so that you won't hear the change. We first will just play again the Reso chords as they are and listen to them without a sound manipulation. And now I will turn on the Widener, and you can hear the difference very clearly. Let me turn it off again. And on again. So thanks to IceStrom for making this. If you're watching, thank you very much. Let's see what's inside of it. Now, as you can see, this one is quite complicated. I actually have no idea how IceStrom put it together, but it works. And you can see there's a lot of effects, two Maelstrom synthesizers in there that all work together to change the sounds. There's even a reverb in here, two delay lines, unison effect, and spidering stuff together with these splitters and mergers. So yeah, quite a lot going on actually. So if you have nice combinators, feel free to share them in comments below this video. Okay, for this final combinator, which is called a De-Esser, I need a vocal source. And this is just a bit of singing, which I got from the Power Tools for Reason CD, which is a very handy CD with all kinds of interesting tips and tricks and tools. Okay, first I'll let you hear how this vocal sample sounds.
Where did you arise? Simple said what the walk and rise. If and now we pretend, go in a struggle, simple then. What?
So what can a de-esser do? Well, it can take the S's or the sharpness of the S's out of music. You often have with a vocal, when you're singing into a microphone, that the S might be a bit too pronounced. And in the end result, that won't sound very good. So I'm going to add the Combinator and let you listen to the difference. And again, I made a nice little skin for this Combinator to make it look interesting. So the ratio is very high at this moment, which, might be okay for an example, but I will move it around to let you hear the difference between taking out all the S sounds and maybe leaving some of it in.
Where did you arise? Simple said what the walk and rise. If and
Okay, we'll
now
turn down the
we
ratio a bit.
pretend, go in a struggle, simple then. Well, thought you did know everyone is shaking gold. Everything makes me see. Oh, and so in you and me, I came where to the rise and fall. You didn't know it go. Everyone seeking, striving the struggle, making the minds a race. What you did so simple, everything we were made over. Where did you come from? Going away, said. Where did you arise?
Okay, so here you can listen to the sample and you notice that when I turn the ratio up above about 30, almost all the S's nearly completely disappear. So definitely this is a tool that you have to use carefully on a vocal source and make sure not to take out all the S sounds because otherwise the voice or the vocal will sound very unnatural. So this is the final combinator I wanted to show you. I will list all these on my website and you can just download them from there and use them in your projects. I'm now back home and not everything can be recorded and edited in a tent. So some of it I did over here But I hope you enjoyed the video about combinators, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.